You think presidents and kings make history? Wrong. Sometimes the fate of every single person on Earth comes down to one guy in a submarine. This is the insane story of how one man saved all of us from being completely wiped out. Deep in the ocean, inside a tiny, boiling hot submarine that was totally cut off from the world, two men were about to start World War III. But a third guy said no and literally saved the world. His name was Vasili Arkhipov, and you've probably never even heard of him. Get this. It's October 27th, 1962. Deep under the Caribbean Sea, inside a suffocating Soviet submarine, three men were holding the future of the world in their hands. This is not a movie. This actually happened. The American warships hunting them have no idea this sub is carrying a special weapon, a nuclear torpedo with the same insane power as the bomb dropped on Hiroshima. And the craziest part? Two of the submarine's officers had already agreed to launch it. This is the story of the one man who said no. So, how did we get here? The world was literally about to explode. It's October 1962, the iciest days of the Cold War. American spy planes just found out that the Soviet Union is secretly putting nuclear missiles in Cuba, only 90 miles from Florida. This was Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev's insane chess move against the US, putting its own missiles in Turkey. In response, President John F. Kennedy surrounds Cuba with a naval quarantine, which was just a nicer word for a blockade, to stop any more Soviet ships from getting in. The whole world held its breath. The two superpowers were staring each other down in a terrifying game of nuclear chicken, and if anyone flinched, it was game over for everyone. And it gets crazier. As part of a secret mission called Operation Anadyr, Moscow sent 4 submarines from their Arctic base. Their job? Protect Soviet supply ships. But each of these subs had a horrifying secret, a single T-5 nuclear torpedo. One of these submarines, B-59, was the flagship of the group, and on board, a 36-year-old officer named Vasili Arkhipov was about to face the single most dangerous moment in all of human history. This mission was a total nightmare from the second it started. These subs were built for the freezing Arctic, not the warm Caribbean. The mission started on October 1st, 1962. Not long after they set off, the submarines lost all radio contact with Moscow. For days, they were completely cut off, flying blind with no idea what was happening in the world. They were also completely unaware that this exact scenario was President Kennedy's worst fear. He knew that forcing a submarine to surface could easily be seen as an act of war, and his fears were about to come true. On October 27th, a day so insane they call it Black Saturday, the crew of B-59 realized they were being hunted. An American fleet with 11 destroyers and the aircraft carrier USS Randolph had found them. Not knowing the sub had a nuke, the Americans started dropping small signaling depth charges, which were like practice grenades meant to force the sub to surface. Deep below the waves, with the submarine shaking from explosions, that message was completely lost in translation. I want you to picture what it was like inside this submarine. It was an absolute hell. The sub's cooling systems failed in the tropical water, and temperatures shot past 120 degrees Fahrenheit, or 50 degrees Celsius. Carbon dioxide was building up, and crew members were literally passing out from the heat and lack of air. They had been on this mission for weeks. Their batteries were dying, and they couldn't call home. The only news they got was from American radio, so they knew the world was on the brink of war. And now, bombs were exploding all around them. As far as the crew of B-59 was concerned, World War III had already started. They thought they were under attack. For hours, the American destroyers kept dropping charges. The submarine, already a pressure cooker, was now filled with fear. The captain of the ship, Valentin Savitsky, was totally exhausted. Pushed to his absolute limit, he decided there was only one choice: to fight back. This is it. In the cramped control room of B-59, 3 men are about to decide if the world ends. Normally, Soviet rules for launching a conventional torpedo were easy. Only the captain had to say yes. But the special weapon was different. On most subs, you needed 2 guys to agree to launch a nuke: the captain and the political officer, Ivan Maslenikov. But because B-59 was the flagship, Vasili Arkhipov was on board as the chief of staff for the whole submarine group. For this one submarine, the vote had to be unanimous. All 3 men had to agree. The captain, totally freaking out, starts screaming his orders. According to people who were there, he yelled, "We're gonna blast them now. We will die, but we will sink them all. We will not become the shame of the fleet." He ordered them to get the nuclear torpedo ready to fire. The political officer agreed. That's 2 votes for Armageddon. The only person standing in the way was Vasili Arkhipov. This wasn't Archipov's first time staring down a nuclear disaster. Just a year earlier, in 1961, he had been an officer on the K-19 submarine when it suffered a catastrophic reactor coolant leak. With the reactor on the verge of a meltdown, Arkhipov had helped his crew improvise a fix that saved the sub, though the radiation exposure would eventually kill several crewmen and likely contributed to his own later death. He had looked into the face of nuclear horror before, and it had taught him a profound and very personal kind of caution. Now, in the sweltering control room of B-59, Arkhipov kept a cool head. He argued, calmly but forcefully, against the launch. His logic was simple. If the Americans were really at war, they wouldn't be using little practice charges. They would have unleashed everything they had to destroy the sub instantly. These explosions, he insisted, were a signal, a command to surface, not an attack. He knew their orders only allowed a nuclear launch if the Soviet Union itself was under attack, a fact they couldn't possibly confirm. Amidst a furious argument, Arkhipov held his ground. He wasn't just another officer, he was the flotilla commander and a respected hero for his actions on the K-19. His word carried weight. Slowly, painstakingly, he talked the captain down. He convinced Savitsky to surface the submarine and wait for orders from Moscow. The launch was called off. The torpedo was never fired. When B-59 finally broke the waves, it wasn't met with an attack. It was met with American warships, harassing searchlights, and encircling aircraft. After a tense but non-violent standoff, the sub was ordered to turn around and head back to Russia. For decades, the world had no idea how close it had come. As former U.S. Defense Secretary Robert McNamara would later say, "We came very, very close to nuclear war, closer than we knew at the time." Historian and Kennedy advisor Arthur Schlesinger Jr. simply called it the most dangerous moment in human history. When they returned home, the crew of B-59 were not treated as heroes. They were met with shame and criticism. One admiral reportedly told them, "It would have been better if you'd gone down with your ship." Arkhipov's role in preventing World War III remained a state secret, buried for nearly 40 years. He continued his service in the Soviet Navy, eventually becoming a vice admiral before retiring in the 1980s. Vasili Arkhipov died on August 19, 1998 from kidney cancer, likely caused by the radiation he was exposed to back in the K-19 incident. He was 72 years old. His incredible story only came to light in the early 2000s when Thomas Blanton, director of the U.S. National Security Archive, famously called him the man who saved the world. In 2017, Arkhipov was posthumously given the first ever Future of Life Award, which his family accepted on his behalf. His daughter, Elena, explained that her father always thought that he did what he had to do and never considered his actions as heroism. The story of Vasili Arkhipov is a chilling reminder of how fragile our world can be and how the entire course of history can be changed by one person's courage and judgment in a moment of unbearable pressure. It shows that true heroism isn't always about charging into battle, but sometimes it's about the quiet, firm refusal to unleash hell upon the world. If you found this story about an unsung hero as compelling as we did, be sure to subscribe and hit that like button. Let us know in the comments, what other moments in history do you think came down to a single critical decision? Thanks for watching.